Well, hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Tarrence Lackran. Those of you who don't know me, aka the Optical Poet, the Director of Partnerships and Programming for the Vision Council and Vision Expo shows. And on behalf of the Vision Expo team, the Vision Council, I want to welcome you all to Coffee Talk. Hopefully you brought your hot or cold beverage of choice. I know the panelists all are prepared with that. We have a very, very special Coffee Talk. If you're anything like me, every year you cannot wait for Vision Monday to release the most influential women in optical. And every year I wait along for that, and it just came out this week. However, this is the first time that we're actually going to hear from them virtually, because we have with us my good friend, Senior Vice President, Editorial Director of Vision Monday, the legend herself, Marge Axelrad. Marge, how are you?
I'm great, Terrence. Thank you. How you doing?
I'm great, Marge. I'm great. I'm excited. You have a great panel going on today. You have some amazing women in this industry. And at this moment, I'm just going to give us a few housekeeping rules and then turn it over to you. Everybody, as you can see, we have used Zoom as a platform here. So in order for this to work, for the community feel to happen with this talk, we just ask, if you're not a panelist, please go ahead and keep your microphone on mute. But that doesn't mean you have to stay silent through this time. If you have a question for the panelists or for Marge, or you just want to state your viewpoint, we ask you please to go ahead and use the chat box and type your question in. If you are brave and you would like to ask a live question, which at least one person does every session, please go to the participants button, which is on the bottom of your screen, and hit raise your hand. And a blue hand will pop up, and that means that you want to ask a live question. We will then unmute you and allow you basically to come on and ask your question. Now, for any reason, if we get disconnected, we just ask you to just log off and log back in 5 minutes. If after 5 minutes we have not reconnected, we will send you an email letting you know the next date and time when this is going to happen. The same panel will happen. So now that the housekeeping is out of the way, I'm going to turn it over to my good friend Marge Axelrad, and she is going to talk a little bit about what this panel is, what Vision Monday has been doing for 18 years, and who our panelists are. So Marge, take it away.
Okay. Thanks so much. Good afternoon or morning, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here, and I want to thank Terrence and the Vision Council and Vision Expo for giving us this really unique opportunity today. You know, it has been 18 years and hundreds of women that Vision Monday has been able to honor through its Most Influential Women in Optical report. And today I want to mention that it was very hard to pick just 4 to get some additional spotlights put on them, because we have 50 incredible people that we honored this year, and there are so many more in the years that preceded them. I think the bigger message here is that women's roles in our vision care industry and profession have been changing so much. What we wanted to do today, and I want to tell you all that it was my friend Jan Corey who inspired this idea, who's listening in today, to talk to the women who are among our rising stars and innovators, people who are coming up through mentoring and making their way through the executive suite, but to speak to 4 women who represent a contemporary look at what women in our industry may be experiencing, and get their point of view and listen a little bit to the future. You know, when I first came to the optical industry, I had been working 20-something years already. My career began in the late 70s. I'm not ashamed to tell you. My career developed in the 80s and 90s. And when I came to Vision Monday in 1988, which is unbelievable to realize, the industry was so different at that time. So many family-owned companies, so many different established structures that had taken the industry to that stage. And there weren't too many women who had decision-making roles and who were leading companies at that time. And actually, it was what inspired about 10 of us to create something that we called the Optical Women's Association, which we did 23 years ago. And our first meeting was where we snuck in chips, dip, and a couple of bottles of wine into one of our hotel rooms during Vision Expo West in Las Vegas. And we all got together and started to talk about what would it be like if more women in the industry could meet each other and learn from each other, because there weren't too many of us at that time. We wanted moral support. We were navigating our ways through companies and decisions and didn't have anyone to talk to really at that time. So the Optical Women's Association started in 23 years ago, and Vision Monday decided to start to reach out to its readers and solicit nominations from them for women all across the country in every sector of our business. And it's so different, from optometry schools and academia to frame design and marketing and sales to being an executive running a company. And it could be a small opticianry practice with 8 people or 5 people, or companies of thousands of people. And women were starting to really find their way. So Vision Monday's Most Influential Women is a way of trying to shine a light on that. And now that we see women taking on more visibility in the industry, we thought it would be great to talk to this group here today. So I'm going to quickly say their names, and then I'm going to give them each a few minutes to talk about themselves. We have Mollie Tavel Kaback. We have Brooke Hargrove from Empire Optical. We have Leigh Berberian from Todd Rogers Eyewear, and we have Dr. Camille Cohen from Brooklyn, New York, and Pearle Vision. But I'm going to let these women tell you a little bit about themselves first, and then we'll get to our questions. Mollie, you want to start us off?
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Mollie. I know a handful of you. I am the 3rd generation member of the Dr. Tavel family. My grandpa founded Tavel Family Eye Care in 1940, so we just turned 80. I just rejoined the Dr. Tavel group last year after a few years supporting Essilor in transitions. So I have been in the industry for, as my parents like to say, my entire life, having been born into it and worked my way through the business over the course of my childhood up through college, and then of course joining Essilor and making a boomerang to come all the way back. So I'm focused on the business growth. What that means is technology, expansion, what does the future of optical look like for us, and then also community engagement and marketing. So great opportunities, I think, to continue to expand and grow and evolve. And it's always a pleasure to be on these types of things, to hear what others are doing and how we can help each other.
Very great. Okay. Brooke?
Hi, I'm Brooke Hargrove from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I married into the industry about 30 years ago, but I was a nurse, and about 15 years ago gave that up and came in. So my husband and I are 3rd generation owners of our store, and we're more of a retail, optical, and lab. We don't do eye exams, anything like that, but I know a few of you too. It's been a really fun to get to know other people in other parts of the country.
Terrific. Thanks a lot. Dr. Cohen?
Okay. Yes, my name is Dr. Camille Cohen. I'm actually a native Floridian. So I grew up in Miami, Florida, graduated undergrad from the University of Miami, and I earned my doctorate at Pennsylvania College of Optometry at Salus University in 2014. And this year, my brother, who is my business partner, he and I acquired a Pearle Vision franchise in Park Slope, New York. We closed on the office March 2nd, and we closed our doors 2 weeks after because of COVID, 2 months. So we've reopened almost 3 months now, just trying to transition and get a foothold into the industry.
Thank you. Leigh?
Hi, everybody. I'm Leigh Berberian. I am the other half of Todd Rogers Berberian, who is an optician and also eyewear designer. I married in also to the industry. I'm a serial entrepreneur with a patchwork background that no two things look alike, but it set me up really well to come on board with my husband and help him grow both of his businesses. So we walk both sides of the aisle, if you will. We have an optical shop in Andover, Massachusetts, which we call our flagship store. And we also have a design company where we design and distribute to other independents across the country.
Okay, great. And I'd like to reiterate that these four women represent some of the rising stars, innovators, and mentors that we honor this year. Let's deal with the tough subject first. Obviously, the world that we're all competing in right now because of the pandemic is unlike any other time in our industry, in our history as a company and a country. Do you have any points of view about what we're seeing now that is possibly amping up recognition for women in business and women in the industry? Anything that you've learned through this experience that makes you wonder about the characteristics of women to manage a situation like this? Anyone want to take that one?
So I'll start.
Okay.
I am the only female on the leadership team at my company. And it has been really interesting at this time to kind of work with my dad, who's still involved, my uncle, who is still very involved, and then our GM to manage COVID, because we all have very different backgrounds, experiences within the industry, and also experiences managing a crisis and figuring out how exactly to communicate to patients. So I would say, you know, as someone who is self-proclaimed semi-level-headed, it has been really nice to have a seat at the table and be able to sort of keep everything manageable and on a cadence despite some of this chaos. I think, you know, a lot of the women that I know are very talented when it comes to crisis management and keeping their head level when things are on fire. So I think there's an opportunity for those of us who thrive in chaos.
Good point. Dr. Cohen, you just mentioned, you know, opening doors and then having to close them. Is it just you and your brother in the practice, or how many folks do you have there?
Well, I relate a lot to what Mollie just mentioned. It's my brother and I, but my brother is really, his background is accounting, investment banking, finance. He does not know very much about the optical world. I have 2 employees in the office, so I do relate to having family meetings where certain things have to be discussed and you have to keep things polite in the way of business. And it's a big transition for me as well, because my employees were former colleagues. So they're older than me and they are not accustomed to me being in this new role as their boss. That's been a challenge in and of itself, because I think sometimes I could say something and maybe it is not received as well as if when my brother might say the same exact thing.
Mm-hmm.
That has been a bit frustrating, but I'm really grateful for the network of strong women I have around me. I know that when we closed, I panicked a bit because I felt as if I took them from another job and now I couldn't pay them. And my circle of friends, they stepped in and said, I know that you're frustrated right now. We're going to create a grocery fund for your employees. So that's one less thing for you to think about. And you need to just really put all of your energy into pivoting, you know, and moving to the next step. So I think what's beautiful is having strong women around you who themselves are bosses in their industries and can step in and help out when you need that additional support.
Yeah, communication is a big issue, of course, right now. Brooke, any thoughts about this?
I think I would just say, maybe from my history as a nurse, I did a lot of psychiatric stuff and just dealing with anxiety and worry that, you know, first of all, when our employees came back, just, you know, talking them through that. And then our customers still, you know, a lot of our customers haven't even been out in the world until they come, you know, for eyeglasses or something like that. And just that part of my history kind of came back, and just keeping everyone calm and listening to people and trying to deal with a lot of emotions and worry. So.
Yeah, can understand. Leigh, any thoughts about that?
Well, for us, it was maintaining optimism, actually. It was the idea that we've always based our story and our brand off of feel-good things, and there was not a lot of feel-good moments to be had. So it was trying to reach out there and connect those dots about what was still appropriate from a marketing standpoint, and how to say things in a way that that stayed true to the hope that everything was going to be okay, as opposed to buying into the fear factor. And that was a really fine line to walk.
Yeah, and it constantly, I know one of the things that I used to share very much early on in my career with other women was how women communicate versus how men might traditionally communicate. And I had to learn that there are differences. It doesn't mean that you can't speak up, and women need to be given credit for speaking up, but sometimes the way that happens is different, and I think you've all just expressed that. Do you have any thoughts about how customers and patients view women in charge of a business today that, you know, might, in your opinion, be different than they might have looked at things 10, 20 years ago? Do you ever have issues with that in your businesses? Mollie, anything?
So I'm thinking about that because in my current role, I'm not exactly customer facing. The patients that I engage with are solely through social media or at community events, and unfortunately, community events aren't happening right now. So it's hard for me to say currently. The first thought that comes to mind, though, is that over the course of the last couple decades, you know, women have been the sole or primary healthcare decision maker. So I think that now is definitely a time when we're seeing a lot of women step up to make sure that their families stay healthy, or, you know, a lot of men who are maybe perhaps the primary caregiver in their home, stepping up to make sure that everyone's making good choices, including when they come into the eye care practice of their choice. So that's been interesting to kind of watch from a third party.
Anyone else have any thoughts about that in terms of how women in authoritative roles may be viewed today in business compared to what might have been the situation before?
I think that you have more women in leadership positions, but for my personal experience, having come from a private practice where I didn't necessarily own the practice, I oftentimes would walk into the waiting area and call the next patient, and they might walk past me or assume that I might be a nurse or a technician. So that has always been a thing for me. Now, owning the office and seeing the patients one-on-one, I have a lot more interaction with not just the patients, but the customers. And sometimes it's received well, but I think, again, at times I sense my knowledge or authority being questioned, or they're waiting or looking for someone else to come around the corner to give that final say. So I do think we've come away, but there's definitely some way to go.
Yeah. Do you ever, in your dealings with suppliers or others in our industry, ever encounter situations similar to that where either you're given all the credibility you want to have, or maybe there's something lacking? Have any of you found that to be the case in your particular roles? Leigh?
I'm trying to think about that. Blissfully no, actually.
Okay.
And I just, you know, it's interesting because I was thinking about all of you. Brooke, I know personally. Mollie and Camille, I don't. But I was trying to think about some of my answers that might be coming up last night about hardships. And the truth is, I think that in some respects, being a creative, it's been a lot easier for me than maybe in a medical role or in a full business role. But also the fact that Marge, people like yourself, paved the way so that these roads are a lot smoother, so that we can all maybe have that pregnant pause right now, thinking about, no, you know, maybe we haven't been treated in that respect differently as women, which is really the goal, right? For whatever, you know, inroads you had to make, you know, however large or small through all those years. So, so yeah, it's just an interesting thing to be on smoother pavement as a result of that.
Interesting.
Hey, Marge?
Yes, Tarrence?
I'm getting some really good questions coming in, and two of them so far is around supporting how vendors and manufacturers can support ECPs right now. So one question comes up is, how can vendors and manufacturers help support ECPs with better community outreach and engagement, especially during these trying times we're in?
Very interesting question.
So-
Yeah, because I'm sure you're each doing different things. Mollie, go ahead. Yeah.
I really appreciate that question. I think it was Scott who asked it. I think that there's a lot of opportunity for vendors, managed care partners, and others who, you know, have a foothold in some of our communities to be able to facilitate interactions with the community where they're you know, already having conversation. So if you are already working with a school to supply face masks during the COVID pivot, if you have an opportunity to introduce your local ECP or, you know, one of your customers to that school to be able to serve as a resource for them, I think that's great. We have been trying to get inroads with a lot of school partners right now who, you know, their children are doing entirely e-learning or mostly e-learning, to be able to send notes home with signs of vision challenges for parents who are now monitoring their kids more closely. I think that for me is very much the primary from a community perspective. I think, you know, just continuing to ask the question, what can you do, has been really helpful from other vendors, because we don't know what we don't know right now with COVID. Everything is evolving. We didn't know we were going to need face shields, so finding vendors who could supply that. We didn't know we were going to run out of wipes, so finding vendors who could supply that, or, you know, that there were payment flexibility options with some of our frame vendors. So just continuing to be open has been really helpful for a business.
Anyone else want to tackle that in terms of what supplier partners can do to help?
Yes.
Times.
I would say that, I'm sorry. You say
No, go ahead. No, go ahead, Camille. I miss.
My brother and I currently are working with Senator Mary's office, hoping to, in conjunction with the National Optometric Association and Prevent Blindness, their Achieve program, which seeks to provide great eye care and eyewear to minority communities. We're working to find the districts of families who are without vision insurance to hopefully provide free eye exams and free eyewear to them. So I can say that I would love support in association with planning that event. That is set for October 3rd. That is something that, even though we might be in the process of transitioning our office, bouncing back from being closed so long, it was very important to me. Education is important. If all of these kids are at home doing remote learning, talking to patients who are teachers, you hear a lot about the disparity. If a family does not have a laptop, they don't have access. So access is key, right? And providing that access access to eye care and eyewear for those who truly need it so that they can learn from home is the first step that we can really try to achieve as the program to really better the generations coming up right now. I think Brooke mentioned anxiety, and that was one of the things I worked with students, but you see the anxiety everywhere. I know that I'm managing my own anxiety day to day, but for families, if they're not sure where their next check is coming from and they're not really sure if they're going to pay that rent, I don't know that paying attention to their child's vision needs is as high a priority on the list, realistically. And it's just one way that we can maybe alleviate some of that anxiety.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Terrence, did you say you had a second question?
No, both of them
Oh.
kind of
Okay.
vendors and manufacturers. So I think we're good now, Marge.
Okay. I guess I'm wondering too, there's so much to each of you and the paths that you took to get to the current place that you are in your professional careers. And I'd like to express and go into that a little bit more. A lot of times when women are doing a good job and they don't think of themselves as women first, they think of what's required for the job, and then only over time maybe they're noticing some differences. But there seems to be a lot of unique paths that people take to get to the positions that they have, and I thought we could explore that a little bit with each of your personal stories. Camille, let's talk about you right now, if you don't mind me picking on you first. In addition to your buying your own practice, you are very involved in the National Optometric Association. Perhaps you can explain to our group here what that group is about and what you do specifically to cultivate other students to explore optometry as a career.
Okay, sure. So the National Optometric Association, it was founded in 1969. So it was a welcoming space for doctors of color who were not really granted access to other professional organizations. They celebrated their 50th year last year. I formerly served as the Director of Communications, being basically the editor for the Sightline newsletter and managing the social media platforms. I stepped away from that for a bit to spend some time to figure out what I wanted to do for myself. I felt that it was time for a professional change, and I just was ready to, I served my term and I was ready to just see what was next for me in my life. And during that time, one of the passion projects that I wrote down, kind of pinned for later, was a tutoring program. I know that I had a hard time, I've always had a hard time with test taking and managing test anxiety, and during boards, just the stress of trying to get through boards and pass it, and just, you know, dealing with life stress, and then also now passing this huge exam. I got through it and I felt like, wow, you know, so many other people afterwards admitted to me that they still hadn't passed. And there's such a stigma behind it, such a level of shame, that had they told me sooner, we could have studied together, we could have discussed topics together, we could have been more of a support system for each other. And I wanted to create that space. So before I stepped down as Director of Communications, I put out a post where I put myself out there and basically mentioned my struggle with test taking. As a result, I received a flood of emails and phone calls and text messages about, you know, from students, from administrators, describing their difficulties. And I felt like, oh my gosh, I wish I could do something, but I was also stepping away from the role and trying to figure my life out at the time. With COVID, our office shutting down, I was very depressed. And in that space, I needed something to do. And I thought, okay, I have this free time, and here's this project I wrote down that I want to try later. Let me just see what happens now. So I put out a notice and asked some students to just join in if they would step in and have a Zoom call with me. I'd send out surveys to doctors who I knew struggled with the exam before. I called some mentors for advice on what they thought would be the most important or necessary tactic to tackling this. And a lot of people, what kept coming back was test anxiety, not necessarily another review. We have plenty of reviews to go over subjects, but nobody talks about how do you study for a test?
Oh.
How do you manage personal stress and the pressure of needing to pass this test? For me, with one of the parts of boards, my mother was struck by a drunk driver. Thankfully, she's okay. But at that time, being in school in the middle of midterms and getting that phone call that, hey, her car is totaled, she's in the hospital, we'll get back to you, a few weeks before my test, obviously, that's going to affect me. And if you speak to students and you take that time to listen to them, they all have a story of similar sort, one way or another, where something else happened as well and they just couldn't focus. And then you feel the test and the shame, and then you just continue this cycle. So it's a way to have them step back and assess what they've done incorrectly. It was an opportunity for other doctors who I'm very grateful for, and the counselors who joined in and volunteered their time to speak with them one-on-one to really mitigate a pathway for them to manage their anxiety. So that was quarantine.
That's very major. And not to mention just cultivating and maintaining the connection of people who want to commit to becoming optometrists, and making sure that they still understand what's involved in that commitment, but helping them through it so that they can achieve that. That's really something. Brooke, let's talk a little bit more about your role, how you and Christian have been working together, but how you modernize a little bit about what Empire Optical is today compared to, say, what it might have been 15, 20 years ago. Would you mind talking about that a little bit?
Sure. Well, for one, we have a brand new building. So that was a big project to go from 3,000 square feet to 6,000. And so that was about a 5-year project. And I still, we work here together. Our oldest son works here, and Christian's father still works here. My mother works here. There's a lot of family. And so that's probably been the biggest, I always tell Tarrence, like, you need to have classes at Vision Expo on how to work with family, because so many of us work with family, Yeah,
so. It's a great suggestion, Mitch. I don't know if you heard that one, but that's a good one. Yeah, so many family companies. Absolutely.
Right. And we all have different styles and feel like we all have a say-so and everything. So communication and patience, and just, I don't know, maybe some alcohol involved.
Okay. Mollie, you had an interesting path because of your work at Transitions, but tell me about that. I mean, did you always know you wanted to stay involved in the business, but you wanted to explore other elements? Or maybe there was a point in your life, I don't know you that well, where you said, this is the last thing I want to do, and you found your way back into it. Can you just share a little bit with us?
Absolutely. And actually, I definitely relate to Brooke's comment about family dynamics, because working in some of our stores as a kid and in our lab as a kid, I wasn't directly reporting to my father, my uncle, my grandpa. And that was great. I really enjoyed working there. I had the opportunity to find my passion for optical in our retail stores, being able to see children and parents and anyone's face light up when they can actually see the birds in the trees and the cars driving, and so I knew that eye care was something that was super important to me, and definitely important to my family. After I graduated from college, I worked in the family business in customer service and marketing. I knew from the jump that customer service was not for me, but that I also didn't know if I wanted to continue working directly for my dad for my entire career. So that was when I decided that I needed to carve my own journey at that point and go find other ways to fulfill my passion for healthcare. I did PR and marketing for Transitions and Essilor, as Marge mentioned. And actually got hired by Essilor to support their lines of business for about the last 3 years. and had a great opportunity there with great mentors, actually, female mentors who were up and coming in the Essilor ranks. Lori Crawford, Holly Gillentine, Patience Cook at Transitions, lots and lots of people who wanted to support up and coming women with passion and, help me understand the business, but also facilitate introductions to other people. So I could see that there were successful family relationships, that, there were other opportunities that weren't just related to marketing. And sort of at that point is when I started considering coming back to my family business. So the boomerang kind of happened when my father turned 70 this year. And I thought, if there was ever a time I wanted to work with him, probably need to start now. And so I moved back from Texas and haven't looked back. It's been really exciting to kind of look at the industry from a different point of view, coming from the corporate side and the LensCaster side to now being an independent. So it's been great. And actually, since we're talking about women, supporting women, I was able to become a transitions change agent now that I don't work for Transitions. And that network of women of all ages is just spectacular. I mean, if you're looking for people from all different types of industry backgrounds, those ladies know what's up. They are inspiring. They are incredibly wicked smart. They have a ton of side hustles. And so it really helped me understand and, confirm that the industry is filled with people who want to help you see better, help people see better, but also who want to make eyewear stylish, like the Todd Rogers group, who want to make innovations in the lab format, who want to, really just improve the way that people perceive eye care. And so long-winded way of saying that's how I came back, and I am super jazzed about all of the opportunity that's presented itself here. And then, while we're giving shout outs, one more shout out to Megan Maloney, who also has stepped up to be a mentor for me, who she's the SVP at National Vision, and she's also helped so many women find a place in leadership in Optical. And whether that looks like merchandising, whether that looks like store support, retail, it's just been really wonderful to have her and others help me guide my own journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the Transitions Change Agents are truly an impressive group. Megan Maloney now on the board of the Optical Women's Association too, by the way. Leigh, you had an interesting path because you had a career that was not optical related, and now yet you are part of a very family-centric business. Tell us a little bit about your journey real quick.
Well, so as I said a little bit in the write-up that I did with you for the magazine, I consider myself at heart a storyteller. And I was a voracious reader as a child, and I also am someone who believes things that they hear when they hit that positive center in my brain. So when people told me that I could do anything as a young girl, I bought into it. And I think that's something that's so big, consistently throughout time is, young minds are so pliable. And now that I'm a mom of two, I see that more so than ever, but we will believe what we're told on a positive level. And so, so long story short, I would read books about strong women, and I would just kind of say to myself, yep, I'm one of those. And I sort of wound around in different industries, always just using sort of my heart and my head and some version of storytelling. So that was
communication businesses, right, Leigh? I mean, you were worked with agencies and.
So I worked with ad agencies. I was in Manhattan for 11 years. I did a stint of window design at Saks Fifth Avenue. I worked for McCann Erickson in advertising. I actually have a theater background. So at the end of the day, I like to say I can act like I can do anything for just long enough that someone might believe me. And so I have a set design background, so I'm able to kind of create worlds, but nothing that really comes together 100%, and everything that kind of works somehow together. So basically when we met, Todd and I met, and he had started his first line of eyewear, and I really didn't know much about it, but I knew that I believed in this guy and he had something special, and I was probably going to marry him, and I was going to help him take it to the next level. So,
That's great.
it's been a work in progress every step of the way.
Yeah. You know, what I'm hearing through all of your stories and each of your pathways is there've always been these stories about women in our industry, but I feel that there's a new attitude among the young women in our industry today that is much more entrepreneurial, perhaps. Not to say anything bad about corporate positions, which have their own challenges, but there is a lot more entrepreneurial going on in that mindset. I wondered if we could just get to some questions. I see some in the chat here, looking at some trends ahead. And what are you guys passionate about? We've heard a little bit from Camille about what she's passionate about and trying to bring more people of color into the profession as well as navigate her own way. What are some of the things you think are going to be important, particularly as we make our way through this unbelievable period we're all in? What is it that people should be looking for, and what contribution can women specifically make to make that happen? Does anyone want to take that, jump first?
I have my own something to throw in there, just the whole, you know, women in general and women that have been important to you. And my past, I have 3 adult sons now, but I've always worked and always been a mom and tried to have jobs that actually work around me being a mom. You know, that was always my priority. And now that they're all out of the house and I'm hiring women with families, it's important to me that you, as a woman, you help navigate that as well, because I think a lot of that is a lot of women, if they have children or parents that are aging or whatever, just to be more understanding. And there's a fine line, you know, where you can't bring too much drama to work, but to be understanding of people, especially right now with, you know, either being sick or afraid you're sick, things like that. We just have to have a lot more patience to and encouragement. I also think that women can eat each other alive too, you know, and it's sometimes it's nicer to work with men that don't take things as seriously. So just to keep that in mind, that we should be empowering each other more than judging, you know, are you sending your kids to school? Are you not sending, you know, just things like that, and listening to people.
Interesting. Yeah. Mollie, any thoughts there about some things that that you're passionate about that we might be seeing more of in the future, or things to be mindful of?
So I have a lot of thoughts. I think that one thing that has come to the forefront during this bizarre time, at least for my family business, has been supporting people with price. And I know this industry talks about price all the time because we're constantly thinking about, are we competing with online? Are we not? Are we, you know, so thinking about how we can help people financially at this time has been really interesting. I think there's an offer out there called Sunbit that we've integrated, which is very similar to Affirm or any of the online programs where you can turn your payments into installations, some interest free, some not interest free, depending on what you select. So I think that's a trend that's not going to go away. We've seen a lot of people at this time take us up on the opportunity to finance. One other conversation that we've been having is around experience. And so why was there a huge rush for people to come back to the eye care professional in June? We've assumed that they want to get out of their house. They maybe ran out of contacts, but I also think that, you know, the eye care professional provides a place where you can not only leave your house, engage with someone else, but also sort of do a shopping experience. It's almost like retail therapy with a side of medical. So it's been really interesting to kind of rethink what experiences are going to bring people out even when there's a risk with leaving your home. So those are the two things that really came to mind for me.
Okay. Leigh, what about you? You know, you're building a company that has a certain character. I know you're very careful with your words and your storytelling. But what do you see that's going to be important in the next year or longer? Some trends that might be manifesting themselves now that we're going to see more of?
Well, you know, it's interesting. We have someone on our team by the name of Debbie Bartlett, who is the president of the Opticians Association of America. I don't know if she's on the call or not. And she is our chief operating officer at Todd Rogers. And her and I talk a lot about the idea of what is an optician in the marketplace, and the fact that, you know, Americans by and large don't really understand what your optician is, who they are, what they do, why that is so important. And so I think that there's a golden opportunity from marketing standpoint right now, where people are sort of captured audiences, to find a way as a community, as an optical community, to really hit that point home. You know, more so now than ever, we're sitting on these Zoom calls, we're getting fatigued, you know, we're using our eyes in so many different ways than we used to. And if we can really, instead of looking at each other as competitors, but find a commonality and a common voice, I think that'd be really special. That'd be something that really could have some legs moving forward, the large companies and the small companies, and, you know, maybe come out of this with a better, healthier understanding for Americans on why they choose the eyewear that they choose and where they go to do that. Make it less about going to the dentist and having that sort of feeling, and more like, wow, you know, I know why I'm choosing what I'm choosing. To understand that maybe it's okay to have your Warby Parkers and your Adidas and everything in between, and really, you know that, you know, you look in your own wardrobe, you look at your t-shirts and you look at your shoes, and there's just, you know, there may be Target to Ralph Lauren and everything in between. So, but we haven't done a great job, I don't think, as an optical community, of imparting that wisdom to the end user. So I think now might be, while everyone's home and on their screens, the time to try and do that.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I attribute that to the four of you and your creativity. Camille, you might agree, right? Everyone has talked to the pandemic as underscoring the need for, and the evidence that people appreciate their eyes, need to take care of them, value eye doctors, value opticians, and that people are receptive to spending more time and learning more about what those mean. Any thoughts about that, Camille, or anything based on, okay.
Yes, I was listening to everyone, and I agree. I just think that we have to also include public health education. Yes, right now especially, there's a lot of eye fatigue coming into the office, a lot of binocular vision issues that people probably didn't even realize they had, that they have now, where they definitely have the need for computer glasses. But we would be remiss not to also mention the importance of following up for your glaucoma care. A lot of people talk about the COVID 15, 20, hopefully not 30, but in that, you know, if you know that you have a family history of diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol, all of those things affect your eyes. And, you know, all this beautiful eyewear will mean nothing if you do not have the vision to use it. So we have to put that out there, the importance of getting an annual eye exam, the importance of taking care of your health, so that not only are you preserving your life, but you're preserving your sight as well. So all of those things are important. We have to put more of an emphasis on why the eye care industry and eyewear industry is important. It's not just some glitzy, fun, run-of-the-mill thing. This is actually your health, in addition to being cute. You know, you can be healthy and be cute. It's not mutually exclusive.
No, I agree. Tarrence, how are we doing on time?
Oh, you guys are doing great.
Do we have more? We have a few more minutes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We actually have a lot of questions that have come in, and I'd like to get to the, you know, two of them if time permits. I know Phernell wanted to ask a live question.
Oh, good.
Phernell as well, so we can unmute Phernell. Great.
All right, testing 1, 2, 3. How's my audio, Terrence?
Sounds good.
All right. Well, good morning and good afternoon to the excellent panel today. I'm just so glad to be here and learning so many things about how we can really advance the profession. My question today is one of a personal nature. As a Black American and a master optician, been in optics for 30 years, when I was younger, no one ever told me about this profession. I was told, hey, Phernell, guess what? In high school, you could grow up and be a bus driver. Isn't that great? And not only be a bus driver, you're so smart, you could be the head bus driver or manage them. 30 years later, obviously that wasn't my destiny, but how, and so here's the question, how can we influence more young women, and especially more Black women, to become involved in eye care? And that includes optometry, opticianry, ophthalmology. I believe there's a lack of awareness in the underserved community that eye care is an excellent profession, and we're sometimes pointed in a direction that really we know nothing about because of our zip code. Thank you so much for taking the question.
Great points, great points. Anyone have any ideas about that, or anything that you might be, I know Camille, anything you might be doing to cultivate the opportunities for eye care opticianry among Black students, among people of color? Camille?
I would say I totally, thank you for the question. I totally agree and understand that, where that's coming from. For me, I grew up in Miami, Florida, so I was always exposed to a very diverse community, and going away to optometry school really was a wake-up call to maybe how the world is outside of Miami. And that was the point that I recognized how prevalent implicit biases are and how much we need to really overcome that. The visibility is key for people to know that the opportunity is there for them. I know currently the National Optometric Association is in partnership with the Poston family and VSP for the Visioning the Future program, which seeks to kind of provide a scholarship pathway and mentorship to historically Black colleges and universities. I think the first round of recipients were awarded this year for young women. And I know that Black Eye Care Perspective, they've instituted the 13% initiative, which really deals with the fact that African Americans occupy 13% of the US population, whereas we only occupy 3% of the profession. So those are some initiatives being taken. For me personally, it's always been important to host events where I can speak in different mentorship roles to young students and just educate them on possibilities. It doesn't mean that someone needs to follow your path, but they need to know that the opportunity is there. And that goes for a variety of communities, you know, and a lot of times I think right now, even when they mention the Achieve program, for those families who speak a second language, you know, they even more so are at a disadvantage for not only the education, but the care. And we have to really forge ahead to make sure that those families are educated on all the possibilities that are available to them.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I think, you know, for women of my generation that were coming up when women were not visible, there was a slight parallel to trying to think about what opportunities, how could you envision a professional future for yourself? Would it be possible to run a business or start a company or be an editor or be a publisher or be a president of a large corporation? I think what I hear from a lot of younger women, like we have here today, is there are very few barriers, and there's a lot more commitment to making those things be more widely known, be more widely discussed, not keep them on the side and make it seem as if it's a secret that you can discover what career options you have. There's a lot of work to do, but I think that there's so much talent in our industry for people with so many different unique backgrounds. I don't see why we can't achieve that. Do we have any other final questions? I think we have to wrap it up a little bit.
Yeah, you know, Jan Corey had a really good question, and I'd like to get, let me pull it up. It was a little further up the chat. So she said, oh, I just lost it. Give me a sec. So she wanted to know if the panel has seen any big industry disruptions on the horizon, any thoughts that have taken hold during the pandemic.
In terms of how business is done, or trends that are starting to be sparked during the pandemic that might be amplified in the next year or two? I think that's what she means. Anybody?
I think.
I'll pop one in. Or go ahead.
No, please, Brooke.
Just from a retail, you know, my job is mainly frame inventory and things like that. And we have changed, we have started being able to do trunk shows again. I mean, we do a lot of different kind of events, and that's different now. You have to make an appointment, which has actually been really great because I'm staffed way better knowing, and we fill up all our appointments. We've done 3 since we've reopened, and just the process of having extra people to clean frames and things like that. I mean, I think we weren't ready to be done with events like that. So just making things like that, you know, more COVID friendly.
Okay, Mollie?
Completely agree with the cleaning and some of the hygiene that we've added in to our daily routines in the retail store, but also in our lab. Our staffing has also been much more predictable, I think. We've been able to kind of figure it out a little better during COVID. One other thing that came to mind was, you know, we've also found that a lot of the roles that we felt were critical to be done in person can be done from home in Optical, which I would never have thought that you could successfully do billing from home, or, you know, manage our retail operations without being in the stores 24/7. So that's been interesting to kind of see how it has actually been performing better or equally as well as before COVID.
Yeah, interesting. Leigh, any thoughts about that? You know, people are doing a lot more virtual try-ons. There's been discussion about virtually showing collections in new ways. Have you guys started to grapple with that?
Yeah, actually, so definitely we stayed a hybrid of open throughout the pandemic, meaning we weren't letting anyone in, but Todd was absolutely doing fittings via Zoom, and I would watch and see how that was transpiring. And there were some, you know, some technical difficulties with that particular thing, but overall, I think, you know, we're all kind of trying to understand, you know, in the event that we can't get very close to each other again in the near future, and I know we even aren't now, but how that's going to flesh out. One thing that I did notice about our own particular environment is that that we have tremendous loyalty because you know, we've seen these people's children grow up, and we've helped whole families. So I think that, you know, people who have really ingrained good, you know, customer loyalty in your shops, that's something that won't necessarily go away. If anything, it'll get stronger now because it is a place that they call home as well and feel very comfortable, and there's a level of trust. So, but yeah, I think that we're going to see a whole new way of trying to do some things remotely as well, and I'm interested to see how that fleshes out.
Yeah. Well, listen, I guess I have to wrap it up, but clearly from the points of view of these 4 women and the other 46 women that we honored this year and the hundreds a year before, there's no shortage of talent and passion and commitment in this industry from women. And I want to thank Tarrence so much for the opportunity today.
No, thank you, Marge. And I know it's time to wrap up, but I actually have a question I was thinking about during this panel, because there's so many men that are listening in today, and there's quite a few men that are in senior roles in our industry that are listening in. And you hear all the time about these amazing women that support the men in our industry, but what can we do as men to support the women in our industry and to amplify their voices?
I think become allies. An ally doesn't just say, I support you. Really, love is shown in action. So if you're saying that you are an ally of women, of women entrepreneurs, women opticians, women optometrists. If you are an ally for seeing women in leadership positions, show up and be present, you know. I think sometimes I can speak on feeling as if I'm being spoken down to in a condescending manner at times, or like I said before, that pause of sometimes someone waiting for someone else to answer or solidify a decision. No, trust that my yes is yes and that my no is no. And if you want to be helpful in any cause, you show up and you prove that you want to be that ally.
Thank you, Camille. That's so well said. Anyone else have anything to add on that? Okay.
I had to. I know we're out of time. I had to ask that question. There's so much. So many.
Glad you did. I'm glad you did.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you, Marge. That was amazing, Marge. I know it was. You have some very talented women on the list, as you do every year, and it was nice to get this variety on this panel and really hear everyone's stories and what we can do to continue moving this industry forward. You know, as industry professionals and supporting and you know, continue to amplify these amazing women. And thank you to our panelists. Thank you, Leigh.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Mollie,
Thank
we
you.
really appreciate it.
It was a pleasure.
As you all know, we do coffee talk every week. Next week, we're going to talk about back to school special. We're going to talk about pediatric vision, sending them back to school safe and sending them back to school in style. We're going to have my best friend, Dr. Arian Fartash, blogger, glam optometrist, and owner of Glam Baby Eyewear. She'll be moderating this discussion with Dr. Christine Chan from Southern University, as well as Dr. Elise Briscoe from Hollywood Vision, and Alessandro Baranti from DeRigo Rem. So we're going to talk a little bit about safety procedures, pediatric exams, as well as fashion trends for children going back to school. Please don't leave yet. You'll see there'll be a poll coming up. Please go ahead and leave your feedback for us. We would love to use this poll to create more content in the future. We want to thank you all for being on in the middle of the day. There's so many names out here and so many familiar faces. James Spina, thank you for being here. Jan Corey, thank you, and for coming up with this inspiration for this. Dr. Ossip, Sarah, Phernell, Jessica, Mike, there's so many names, and if I did not name your name, it's not because we don't love you, it's just because there's 79 of you on, and we can't get to every name. If I missed your question, I apologize. We'll try to get the answer for you. And Marge, again, thank you for doing this.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Talk, and we'll see you guys all next week at 12:15. Take care and keep safe. So, nice job, ladies.
Thank you.
That was
so
great.
Good. It was so good. You know, I was getting a lot of interaction. There's so many questions coming about between people here on Zoom and also on Facebook. There were just so many questions coming in.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't even conscious of managing watching that. So
Yeah, at all.
It was really good. This was
great.
This is a good group.
Thank you, ladies. You are all rock stars. I knew that would happen. Thank you very much.
Bye.
It was a pleasure to hear from all of you. Thank you.
Yeah.
You as well. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Your company.
Okay, Terrence.
Yeah, and I should have the YouTube video in the next 24 hours, and I'll send an email with a link to all of you.
Perfect. Okay.
All right.
Thanks so much. Yeah. Take care.
Thanks, Marge.
Take care,
Bye.
ladies.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
You too.
Leigh, give Todd a big hug.
Oh yeah, happy birthday.
I will.
Big happy birthday.
From me, and make it inappropriate.
Oh, okay. I know exactly what to do.
Okay, you guys. Thank you so much again. Bye. I'm gonna go.
Bye, Leigh.
I am all set, guys.
You got the screenshot of the poll?
Yep.
Okay, I was about to send it to you. Cool.
Sorry, I just do it automatically.
No, I know you do. I do it as a backup in case it closes down on you or whatever.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right, bye.